Welcome. In Hungarian we say Üdvözlök mindenkit. Welcome everyone. I'm Laura Loudermilk, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the dedication of this 22nd Vigo County, Indiana historical marker. This historical marker honors the Terre Haute immigrant Hungarians who established this neighborhood in the years 1890 to the 1920s. Welcome, distinguished guests. The Honorable Terre Haute Mayor Duke Bennett.
Good to be here. Thank you.
President Larry Wilson. Vice President Janice Shook. Treasurer Kathy Miller. Trustee Steve Mitchke and Frank Chervenko. Also recognizing and not present today, Secretary Ann Magalenas and Janet Klepps. Now I would like to invite Mayor Bennett to share his address and proclamation.
Okay. Thank you very much. Gonna duck down a little bit here so you can see me. Well, first of all, thank you all for coming out here today, and appreciate the invite to be a participant in this. You know, when I first got involved in politics, everybody said, oh, you got to go to the Hungarian Hall. You got to show up there, because if you don't show up there, you're a nobody. And so I didn't even know there was a Hungarian Hall. This has been 20-some years ago, probably 25 years ago. And first time I went, I could not believe how welcoming people were. They didn't know me from Adam, but I was just a guy that wanted to run for an office, and went to the dance, the spring dance and the fall dance, and just had so much fun there. And I have rarely missed one. I miss them that you guys aren't doing them anymore, or at this point, but I really appreciated the warmth of the people and just inviting everybody in to have a good time. And then I've learned more about it. You know, attending those, obviously people have shared a lot with me about the Hungarian community here in Terre Haute, and I had no idea. I learned so much about that. And I would say that I appreciate what you guys have done with this plaque, because it's important to keep that history alive, you know. Many times things just kind of fade away, and we can't let that happen. So it's great to be here today and be a part of this, but I have a proclamation to make it official, what we're doing here in our community. So I will read this for you. And once again, first of all, thanks for being here, but thanks for keeping the Hungarian immigrant community alive in Terre Haute, Indiana. The Terre Haute Immigrant Hungarian Community was established in the early 20th century, where over 40 families lived and established small businesses on the north side of Terre Haute. And whereas these courageous souls left Hungary, enduring the lengthy transatlantic journey to seek a better life in America, where a tremendous labor force was needed for our country's rapidly expanding industrial and agriculture revolution. And whereas citizens of this immigrant community helped to build and service the railroads, unearth coal, work on the farms, work in glass production and distilleries, meat packing plants, and near here an enamel cookware factory and a forge metal at the Malibu foundry. And whereas on July 30th, 1909, they founded the Terre Haute's first Hungarian Sick and Death Benefit Society, a self-funded organization to financially assist members in sickness and death and to preserve the Hungarian culture. And whereas they established numerous businesses within the community, including Coos Grocery and Meats at 2401 Maple in 1922. And whereas their sons and daughters dutifully enlisted in the armed services of the United States or worked in the war industries to defend the principles of democracy and liberty in World War I and World War II. And whereas the Hungarian community continues to have a presence in Terre Haute, hosting a variety of events sharing traditional customs and observances at the Hungarian Hall at 2049 North 22nd. Now therefore I, Duke A. Bennett, Mayor of the City of Terre Haute, do hereby proclaim September 16, 2023 as Immigrant Hungarian Community of Terre Haute, Indiana Day, and ask all of our citizens to join me in celebrating the dedication of this Indiana Historical Bureau marker. Thank you, and God bless each and every one of you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mayor.
it.
Thank you. I'm grateful to the Indiana Historical Bureau for this recognition. Thank you for the past 2 years of guidance and support to complete this process. Indeed, it was character building. And I have great appreciation to the William G. Pomeroy Foundation of Syracuse, New York, for their grant award. I would also like to thank my friends of Terre Haute's Hungarian Brotherhood, the First Working Men's Benefit and Death Society, who have supported the achievement of this marker. Thank you. Gratitudes to Mark Bennett, the columnist for Terre Haute Tribune Star, for his outstanding articles featuring the historic background of our neighborhood and the legacy that this marker represents. To Gary Nezovich, the event chair for the 12 Points Revitalization Organization, for your direction and assistance to pull together this event. If any of you know Gary, he's like an octopus and has his hands in everything in Terre Haute. Thank you, Gary. And to Tim Faust and Christina Lee and their team at Large Inc., Terre Haute, and Josie Doherty, Terre Haute Department of Public Works, for completing the necessary official permits and safe installation of the marker. Hello to Susie Quick and Marla Flowers from the Vigo County History Center. To Tierney Williams and Lauren Torkanaga for their graphic designs for the invitations and today's program pamphlet. And to Envisionary Media for videoing this event. In the big and small of today, we commemorate those early 20th century Hungarians who came here to these shores and to this city, who made Terre Haute their home. Today, I join you, who are descendants of these courageous brethren, who with the native-born and other immigrant groups were fundamental to the socio-economic history and growth of this community and of our nation. This marker acknowledges more than the homes and businesses of the neighborhood. Though this marker stands small in our universe, it stands tall in our legacy. Let this story not be erased. I am the fourth of 9 grandchildren of Frank and Julia Kus, young Hungarian immigrants who made Terre Haute their home 100 years ago at this location. Before the age of 15, Frank learned to mine coal and construct cement brick homes in his village, Radoshtown, Hungary. Here, in his adult years, he built the brick house on the next lot, and at this site, he built his home and attached business. With his wife, Julia, they operated Kus Grocery and Meats in the years 1922 to 1952. In this home, they raised their 3 children, Stephen, Julia, and my mother, Elizabeth. Eventually, the ownership of this property was transferred to their daughter, Julia, and her husband, Bob Hockman, and here they operated Northside Sporting Goods for over 60 years. Frank and Julia spent their retirement years in this home, in their Kus crafted home and garden. This unofficially is Kus Corner. Now let's take a walk through history that this marker captures in the 12 lines of text cast in metal. This story illustrates this story. But one thing Mayor Bennett forgot to mention was that besides making sure you are all good citizens, he will be handing out a post-test after today's presentation to make sure you understand Hungarian history. There was a question from the audience about that.
Mr. Mayor, is this test going to be fill in the blank or true or false or multiple choice?
We're going to stick with true or false, I believe.
Spoken like a politician.
We'll keep it simple.
And extra points for a 500-word essay.
In Hungarian.
In Hungarian.
Yes, of course.
Jill, will they have to remember the statistics that I share?
Oh, definitely. That's the most important.
Okay. Kathy, if they mess up, do they still get cookies at the hall?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I think the secretary said something about.
Oh. Mayor, you left the tests on your desk at the office.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
You're lucky.
Everybody's off the hook.
Our world history of immigration explains that because of political and economic conditions between 1870 and 1920, there was a push of native Hungarians from their homeland, which was largely due to the economic hardships of the agrarian population outside of the established cities. Large land barons made it difficult for a man to own and sustain a small patch of land to house and feed a family. The pull of these immigrants to America came at a time that our country was at the advent of an industrial revolution, when industry, manufacturing, and transportation needed a large labor force for this industrializing economy. Leaving their homeland, immigrant groups were pulled by promise and opportunity to seek a better life. Companies employed recruiting agents here and in Europe who capitalized on offering jobs to meet America's labor needs to empower our position in the world's economy. Many newcomers in this wave of immigration had limited skills or were flat out unskilled and sought any opportunity to work. Full of hope, they came to America, where life would be better, where one could someday prosper to own land or send earnings back to relatives and friends to come to America. Many expected to save a small fortune to return to Hungary to fulfill their dreams to buy their own farmland. Yet, for various reasons, many remained. These courageous people of diverse origins, religions, language, and skills endured a long, uncomfortable, cramped voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. My grandmother said that it took her 3 weeks from leaving her hometown in Salona, Hungary, to arrive to Ellis Island. Many immigrants settled close to their port of entry, New York, Philadelphia, Boston, Baltimore, New Orleans, and others migrated to regions outside of the coast cities. Roughly 18 million immigrants arrived on our shores between 1890 and 1920, and an estimated over 1 million were Hungarian. The 1910 U.S. Census indicates that over 14,000 Hungarians settled in Indiana, with approximately 452 settling here in Vigo County, and approximately 287 settling in Terre Haute proper. Eventually, here within these city blocks, 44 Hungarian families set down new roots to make their new home, to work and raise their families. Hungarian settlements larger than ours, like New Brunswick, New Jersey, Cleveland, South Bend, Indianapolis, established ethnic churches and societies with large festivals to observe their religious and cultural traditions. Some of those festivities still occur in those communities today. Here in this neighborhood, just a few blocks away, a Hungarian brotherhood was conceived, and the Hungarian Hall was established in 1909 to provide a location for fellowship, social, and cultural gatherings. Politically, World War I changed immigration activity and allegiance. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was an ally to Germany. In the U.S., new laws were imposed restricting immigration in both directions, making it difficult for those already here to return to Hungary or prevent Hungarian citizens from seeking passage to here. Many already established in the United States disavowed their loyalty to Austria-Hungary, and in allegiance to their new homeland were eager to obtain U.S. citizenship. Like other ethnic communities, these Terre Haute Hungarian pioneers met many challenges as they assimilated into a new life of social, cultural, religious, and ethnic mix. They were not free from xenophobic, social, and labor discrimination. Many workers became politically active and joined labor unions and Socialist Party organizations to fight for equal pay and job safety. They worked long hours in their days and nights, weekdays and weekends before the concept of vacation existed. They learned to speak English, they sent their children off to school, and in 1942, as the plaque at the Hungarian Hall shows, they sent their sons off to World War II. They confronted their hardships to survive, to succeed, and to lay a path for those who followed. Within this microcosm of Terre Haute, their hard work helped to build and service the railroads, unearth coal, work the farms, keep distilleries operating, cut and pack meat, make glass bottles, mill hominy, manufacture enamel cooking ware, and fabricate metal products. Others operated rooming houses and opened small businesses to provide services for survival, like the Blessed Taverns and grocery stores. Their labor helped burst forth our local, state, and national economies and expand our civic growth and diversity. Many of what we enjoy and appreciate today in our modern life is the result of their efforts, sacrifices, and dedication. We rejoice in their contributions, their accomplishments, their gifts, and their treasures. Now I would like to introduce Jill Weiss-Siemens of the Indiana Historical Bureau.
Well, I know you didn't get enough history, so I brought a little more. But don't worry, I got it down to 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So I'm Jill Weiss-Siemens. I'm a historian at the Indiana Historical Bureau, which is a division of the State Library and the agency tasked with managing the Historical Marker program. We've been placing markers since the 1940s all around the state. There's about 700 and some standing right now, and they cover every topic from basketball championships to women's suffrage to Civil War generals, everything in between. So for a topic to become a state marker, it has to have statewide and not just local significance. So of course we think that they're all important, but some of them, some of these topics and this marker among them have more relevancy to our lives today. So I just want to say a little something to answer that so what question. Why is this still significant today? The history of the Hungarian community here helps us to understand the promises of American democracy, where those promises have fallen short, and our responsibility for continuing to try to perfect this democracy. Hungarian immigrants came here looking for the American dream, like many others, political freedom, and a chance to make better lives for their children. What they found were many opportunities closed to them, as their Hoosier neighbors viewed immigrants, especially those from Eastern Europe, with suspicion, and the language barrier made it hard to form bridges. The newcomers were forced to take dangerous and low-paying jobs in manufacturing, railroads, coal mines, but they were strong and hard-working people. They persevered and organized. They joined unions and created the mutual benefit society that the community is still benefiting from today. They learned English, they pursued citizenship, and made sure that their children got a good education. As Laura told us, during World War I, they enlisted in the armed forces, they purchased Liberty bonds, they swore public oaths of allegiance, and made sure their neighbors knew they were, quote, Hungarians by birth and Americans by choice. And yet, some of their neighbors still continued to view them with suspicion, and the federal government declared Germans, Austrians, and Hungarians to be alien enemies. Some were jailed and interned with little or no evidence of wrongdoing, and yet they still persevered. They continued to gain citizenship. They opened grocery stores and other small businesses, and they grew Terre Haute culturally and economically. In the 1920s, the United States slammed the door on immigrants from Eastern Europe with the 1924 Immigration Act and the resultant quota system that kept further Hungarians from coming. In this age of rising nationalism and xenophobia, many Hoosiers joined the Ku Klux Klan, targeting immigrants for intimidation and exclusion from political power. Hungarian immigration to Indiana all but ended. But the community here continued to thrive and shape the cultural fabric of Indiana, countering that homogeneous picture that the Klan tried to paint of our state. We owe these immigrants a debt that we can repay by remembering their efforts. This story remains as important today as ever, as we once again debate who is and who isn't an American, which immigrants are invited here, and which are we excluding from the American dream. In the early 20th century, our country and state failed to live up to the democratic promises made to the Hungarian immigrants who settled here. But they persisted and helped to perfect our democracy through their service, their citizenship, and their cultural legacy. So let's try to remember that Indiana wasn't just forged by George Rogers Clark and Jonathan Jennings and Abraham Lincoln, but also by these newcomers who work tough jobs, who saved their money, invested in this community, and gave character to their adopted home. The history of the Hungarian community of Terre Haute is the history of Indiana itself. Something to keep in mind today as newcomers ask us to include them as fellow Hoosiers. So many people have made this moment of remembrance and thanks possible, and Laura named most of them. I would like to again thank the Pomeroy Foundation for their funding contributions, the descendants of Frank and Julia Coos for initiating the marker and persevering through the extensive marker application process, especially Laura for her efforts in organizing today's dedication and sharing her more personal and in-depth history of this community. A big thank you to the First Working Men's Society, the people that are preparing Hungarian Hall for us to go celebrate, to the other descendants of the original Hungarian immigrants, to the city of Terre Haute, to Mayor Bennett, to the council, and everyone in attendance, including my parents, for their support of this historical marker. Thank you so much.
And now I would like to introduce Larry Wilson, the president of Terre Haute's first Hungarian Working Men's Benefit and Death Society. Larry?
Mine's going to be short too, so you probably don't have time to go to the porta potty. Thank everyone for coming today. I'd like to welcome you in Hungarian, but that ship sailed 2 years ago, and I took two years of Latin at Wiley, so, and besides, I'm old to remember things. First, we must say a special thank you to Laura Loudermilk for the tremendous time and effort she made to make this day happy. She's from Chico, California, and she made several trips here to finalize all the details. Thank you, Laura. You probably figured out by now that the Wilson name's not Hungarian. I'm recognized as a social member of the Hall with no ancestors that we know of. My wife Charlene's grandmother was Slovakian, so I guess we're neighbors. In November 2002, Charlene and I became members of the Hall about 21 years ago. It seemed like yesterday. We joined to spend some time with her brother and sister-in-law, who she hadn't been close to for a while. Some of you may remember him, the late Hank Carpenter. He was a member for 15 years. He was a caretaker for a while. He was well known for taking care of Deming Park for 25 years. And he was friend of most all the politicians, both parties. And he could also be found cooking the ham and beans after the Labor Day parade every year. And also at Collett Park when they had their fall festival. That's just one example of the good people that come from the Hungarian Hall. As I mentioned, the Hall began in 1909 as a support group for the poor immigrants in the neighborhood. They helped each other when there was family in distress, a sickness, or a death. After the original hall was built around 1922, they had a place for gathering for weddings, anniversaries, birthdays, as well as wakes and funerals. But the happiest times were celebrating the many Hungarian traditions. The bacon fry, the spring and fall dances, which we still celebrate today. I was quoted on TV once. They interviewed me, and the only thing they put on there was, "We like to eat, we like dances." Well, for many years nowadays, we've become a close-knit social group who love friendships, history, and our community. We have about 65 members, but we have several out of town who support us with dues and donations. Probably about 20 in there, Kathy. We have a few honorary members, including the city mayor, even Duke. We have one member named Joanne Castillo, who will be 96 in December. I was hoping we could get her here today, but she don't get out much. She's almost as old as Duke. She could tell you a lot of history about the hall and people from the hall. We meet once a month for a business meeting, usually including a Hungarian 101 topic, followed by a delicious carry-in meal. Lots of good Hungarian desserts. We support our local restaurants. We go to lunch once a month at noon. The meeting meal tomorrow is our annual bacon fry. Joel bacon cooked over a wood fire, served with the juice on crusty bread, with tomatoes, peppers, and all the fixings. Hopefully, many of you have heard about our famous cabbage roll dinners, or pigs in the blanket. Mark your calendar, October 7th, we're having another dinner, and it'll be a drive-through also. It's delicious. We have a steak fry to celebrate our anniversary. 114 years this year. These are just some of the activities and fun that we have, that we share with these really good people. After the program, you're all invited to come over to the hall. It's just a block south of Maple on 22nd for an open house, refreshments, and see a beautiful display of our history, memorabilia. The outside of the hall is pretty old. It originally was wood, it was bricked, and the building itself was built in the 20s. But inside, if you haven't been in, it's beautifully remodeled. Kitchen, restroom, stage, and a beautiful wood floor, which somebody takes great care of. Steve. We'll be there to happy to answer any questions you have. We love to talk and socialize. But if you need someone to speak Hungarian or interpret, see Kathy Miller. Our most valuable, long-time treasurer, historian, and high-priced renting agent, building renting agent. Thanks, Kathy, for all your work. Excuse me. As usual, I've talked too much. Thanks for coming and being here.
Kathy and I are learning Hungarian. It's pretty hard. Okay. Nearly all of us can trace our heritage to another nation, and I hope that you are touched by some sentiments expressed here today. As expected, life has its way of stealing time from us. Time rolls on, and each generation distances us from our origins. Each succeeding family born from these homes is one more generation removed from those whom we honor today. But like I said in the beginning, let this story not be erased. Here, as we stand in their shadows, we hear the wheels and whistles of the rolling trains, see the coal grit and sweat on their faces and clothing, hear the horses whinnying in front of the plows, hear the clink of glass bottles in the taverns, smell the aroma of stuffed cabbage, hear a language far unfamiliar to you, hear the melody of the czardash, or perhaps hear my grandfather playing his violin here on that porch. We honor their life's journey that began far away and ended here at this corner, and who selflessly raised our parents within this community. Our footprints dust those who entered this store and traveled these streets to build and vitalize this neighborhood. I would like to introduce the other Coos grandchildren who join you to share this day in reverence to our collective legacy, this neighborhood, this brotherhood of the Hungarian Hall. Judy Betancourt and her husband from Texas. Roberta Hockman, owner of this homestead, the daughter of Julia and Robert Hockman. Thank you, Bobby, for your support and permission to place the marker at this site. And in memoriam, Judy and Roberta's siblings, Michael and Janice. Stephanacus Nichols from Zionsville and her family. And thank you, daughter Tierney and her husband Brad, for what you have done to bring this together. Steve Coos and his family, and Scott Coos and his family. My brother Louis Loudermilk of Marcellus, New York, not able to be here today. In closing, I would also like to recognize Tom Rosnowski. He's here today from Bloomington, author of An American Hometown, an extraordinary publication who uniquely chronicled and biographed the 1927 Terre Haute phone directory. His book is a fascinating approach to Terre Haute history. And in pages 82 to 85, he acknowledges our Hungarian neighborhood and the first Terre Haute Hungarian Society. Good talk. And finally, a thank you to fellow Syracuse, New York high school classmate Linda Gordon Thomas here from Florida. And Rob Doyle, who is not here. Rob is also one of our classmates from Syracuse who is now a Terre Haute transplant, and he helped me with some of the necessary photographs for the application for the marker. Nagyon szépen köszönöm. Thank you very much. I would like Steve Mitchke to lead us to the marker for the unveiling.
Right now, I'm like,